Hello, and welcome to this webinar on Ojas. Ojas is one of the three subtle doshas, the doshas themselves being Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Ojas is the subtle dosha of Kapha and is the subtle essence of water. Ojas directly relates to our immunity and our endurance, both physically and mentally. Understanding our immunity and vitality through the lens of Ayurveda helps us to live our life in a way that supports our Ojas, supports our longevity, and supports our immune system. So Ojas is a superfine biological substance, and the biological strength of the tissues depends upon it. Ojas, I'm going to read a quote from Dr. Vasant Lad. Ojas is the essence related to vitality and immunity. It is like honey. As the honeybee collects the minute molecules of the essence of hundreds of flowers and accumulates them in the honeycomb, Ojas, the pure essence of all the bodily tissues, circulates via the heart and throughout the body to maintain the natural resistance of the bodily tissues. Ojas fights against aging, decay, and disease. A person who has good Ojas rarely gets sick. Ojas is a superfine biological substance, and the biological strength of the tissues depends upon it. Ojas is not a poetic or romantic concept. It is a protoplasmic biological substance that includes albumin, which is a protein produced by the liver that keeps fluid from leaking out of blood vessels and transports hormones and vitamins throughout the body. Globulin, which is proteins that assist in blood clotting and act as plasma cells, which indicate if there is an antibody deficiency in the bloodstream, and many hormones. It is formed during the biosynthesis of bodily tissues. That is, during the creation of sthyayi dhatus, which is the nourished and stable form of a tissue. As ghee is the pure essence of milk, in the same way, Ojas is the pure essence of the dhatus, or tissues. Dhatus is the Sanskrit term for tissues in the body. In the churning process of making butter, Agni, which is heat or electricity, our digestive fire in this context, Agni is created and it ionizes and separates the molecules of butter from the milk. By further heating the butter, the pure essence, which is ghee, separates. In the same way, the end product of digested food plus Agni creates the nutritional precursor called Ahara Rasa, which is a milk-like alkaline product of digestion that is carried from the intestines to the lymphatic system into the bloodstream. So that is Dr. Lad's description of Ojas. Let's keep going. So modern medicine talks about the immune system, which includes the hematopoietic, endocrine, nervous, and digestive system. The Ayurvedic concept of Ojas corresponds to the modern medical concept of the immune system, including gamma globulin, which maintains the immunity of the liver. Ojas also includes the endocrine, nervous, skeletal, muscular, hematopoietic, and digestive system. When all these systems perform their physiological functions, Ojas is maintained. Therefore, Ojas is a potential source of strength, power, natural resistance against illness, which is called natural immunity. Immunity depends upon the quality of digestion, the quality of liver function, and the integrated function of all hormones in the endocrine system. There are two types of immunity: natural or inborn immunity and acquired immunity. When you receive a vaccination against smallpox or polio, that is acquired immunity, which is not Ojas. That's not the same thing. Ojas is the natural resistance to fight infection. Ojas is influenced by the power of Agni, which determines digestion and the quality of assimilation and nutrition. The quality of Ojas also depends on lifestyle, stress, traumas, and the quality of relationships. If our relationships are not good, our Ojas will not be good. A healthy relationship is a good tonic. So, need I say more? Dr. Ladd covers Ojas in a very beautiful and detailed way, but I'm going to keep going because it's such an important concept in Ayurvedic medicine and for our health in general, because Ojas is the foundation. Ojas is everything in our health journey. Before we can heal, we must nurture and pay attention to Ojas. If we try and apply different therapies, medicines, supplements, diets before addressing Ojas, nothing will stick. Ojas has to be the first thing that we address. And so this is a very important concept in healing. So Ojas is our reservoir for endurance. It is also the subtle dosha of kapha, dosha, which we said before, and the essence of water. The other two subtle doshas are prana and tejas. Prana is our life force, or the intelligence that rides on and moves our breath. Tejas is the pure essence of fire and intellect. Think of Ojas as a large body of water. Prana is the boat in the water, and Tejas is the fuel to move the boat. However, if the lake is empty, there can be no boat in the first place. Therefore, Ojas is the absolute priority next to Agni, which is our digestive health, our digestive capacity, our digestive fire. When it comes to our health, if Ojas is low, Prana and Tejas cannot exist. When our Ojas runs out, we die. When one's Ojas runs out, Prana leaves the body completely and we leave our bodies. So how do we protect our Ojas? There are several immediate things we can do. Traditionally, the best way to preserve Ojas is through brahmacharya, which translates to abstinence. We're going to get into some more details on that. And pratyahara, which means withdrawal or control of the senses. Okay, so brahmacharya. Sex and the health of our relationships are one of the three main pillars of health according to Ayurveda. The control of our sexual fluids greatly influences the rest of our health, just as the health of our relationships in general, whether they are sexual or not, affect our health. When one is sick or looking to reserve their energy for higher yogic practices, abstinence or at least mindfulness of how often and with whom you are having relations with is very important. The reason being that sexual energy, or shukra, is needed to build ojas. The energy that provides stability to the body and mind is the foundation of our immune system. When shukra, or our sexual energy, is depleted, so is our ojas. I'll read you another quote here. So, the sexual restraint requested by the Vedic teachings does not come from a place of judgment or threat of eternal damnation. Rather, the practice of brahmacharya is quite practical for a yogi who seeks enlightenment, as well as for the sick individual who desires to return to health. This is from Dr. Mark Halpern, was the founder of the California College of Ayurveda. So our sexual energy is incredibly potent. And because it is the basis for our ojas, sexual restraint and or mindfulness is necessary when we want to protect our immunity and health. Keep in mind that simply not having sex is not the complete answer. The idea is that we are transmuting our sexual energy, not simply suppressing or denying ourselves this energy. If we deny or suppress any energy, it will also be depleting or lead to some sort of imbalance. So, similarly, if we suppress our sexual energy without transmuting it, it will also deplete ojas. So, how to transmute your sexual energy? That is another video for another time. That's a really big, big topic. But we can say that this is the work of Tantra. There are different schools of Tantra. My school of Tantra is Sri Vidya Tantra. We practice both internal and external rituals for manipulating energy. And the left-handed school of Tantra is more focused on the transmutation or working with sexual energy. The middle path is interested not just in the physical body, but also our internal world. So, Tantra is a big tool for knowing how to use this energy in an intelligent way and not simply denying it and not just spending it without any thought or care. Okay, and pratyahara, withdrawal and control of the senses. So nowadays our senses are constantly stimulated. The ease of access to electronics that have just about everything we could possibly imagine to keep us entertained has made the natural world less and less interesting to many of us, unfortunately. The blue light emissions from our phones and computers stimulates the brain and wakes it up, cranking up the intensity of go mode on our sympathetic nervous system. Our screens have desensitized us to anything that is not incredibly bright, shiny, and has immediate gratification. Our attention spans and ability to focus have plummeted, and we no longer have control over our senses. They are controlling us. Waiting at a stoplight, Instagram. Bored at home, Facebook. Overwhelmed, Twitter. These are just some examples of how your senses are controlling you. We all know the family that has fallen prey to the addictive quality of their phones and sit at dinner with everyone on the phone instead of talking to each other. I've done it. Most of us have probably done it. The point is, we live in a world of so much stimulus and immediate access that our senses are constantly hungry for more. Our ability to sit still and be alone is nearly non-existent. Phones are just one example. Multitasking is another good example. You're working on one project and then your brain says, well, what about this? And so, of course, you start working on that too. And then another thing as well. And soon enough, you have started 7 different projects and have forgotten the point of any of them. And perhaps are now just back on Instagram. When the brain gives us a signal, we have been trained or brainwashed into acting without thinking. What if we take pause? You have a reflex to reach for your phone, to send that email while you're eating breakfast. What if we pause, notice the thought, and then wait? Enjoy just breakfast. This is much easier said than done, but I am going to teach you in our work together how to actually do this. There are systems that exist that I'm going to teach you to make habit changing actually possible and not just something you say you're going to do. So this is the beginning of pratyahara, control of the senses. You continuously notice your mind and senses being drawn to certain things and ideas, but instead of mindlessly following, you pause and decide if it is absolutely necessary that you do that thing right now while you're eating breakfast with your loved ones. You decide that you are no longer going to be dragged around by the nose, going here and there. The senses decide where you need to be at any given moment. Perhaps that email does not need to be sent, or it does need to be sent, but not while you're eating or spending time with family. Maybe there are boundaries that you can put into place with yourself, with work, your coworkers, family, friends, in order to protect your ojas, to protect your immunity. Our habits are moments when we go unconscious. Habits allow us to not think. They allow us to check out mentally. And this is a sign. This is an important sign. If we are constantly going unconscious, what are we avoiding? We all need to check out sometimes, but to what extent? By deliberately choosing when you are going to engage in your habits and for how long, you're beginning to take back the reins of your senses. The senses are like little kids on a sugar high. They cannot regulate themselves. They will take more and more and more unless you say no. When we do not regulate them, they binge and eventually become so exhausted that it turns into a chronic disorder. Ayurveda restores harmony to all of the senses through sensory therapies for each dosha. So, what are some examples of how to practice pratyahara? Well, like we said, pausing before automatically checking social media or your email. It's second nature to just scroll through your phone, right? Pause, take a moment to decide if it can wait. 95% of the time, it can. The point is to not let your senses continuously suck you away from the present moment. If you're with your family, be with them. If you're waiting in line, wait in line and people watch. Or just notice how you're breathing. Take a few moments to go outside without your phone and either sit with a cup of tea or take a walk. No agenda, just walking and observing. Notice the lists and ideas that your mind comes up with, and then return to observing your surroundings. Practice being in your surroundings with awareness. Are you feeling peckish, or are you really just bored or thirsty? This one has been a big one for me, and I'm guessing a few others out there now that we are stuck inside for a while and routines are perhaps a little lacking. Okay. And now, failure of the intellect. So, this is the third way that we deplete ojas. This is a big one. Failure of the intellect is one of the main causes of disease. And according to Ayurveda, the cause of disease is attributed to the mistake of the intellect, or prajna paradha. This is when the mind begins to see itself as separate from the field of intelligence or consciousness from which it came. Dr. Douillard calls this primordial stress, the one stressor that all imbalance can be traced back to. This is also from Dr. Douillard. When you start to see yourself as separate from the whole, separate from God or the divine, you begin to act like it. And soon enough, even your organs and systems in the body that are supposed to work in harmony start operating out of sync, as if they are also separate from the whole. This is called the mistake of the intellect, when the mind and body start to function independently of each other or the whole. The whole, according to Ayurveda and quantum theory, is a unifying field of consciousness that pervades everything. When the body is functioning in balance, there is a harmony between the body's underlying quantum field and the quantum particles that make up your physical body. When the body is out of balance, the body begins to function without a connection to the field of consciousness. New research has found that quantum particles called biophotons are the body's information carrying particles. They communicate both inside and outside of the body with the quantum field, aka consciousness, at great distances, suggesting we are all connected at a fundamental level. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. These biophotons can be either coherent when the body is healthy and in balance, or incoherent as a result of free radical damage to DNA. Studies have shown that yoga, breathing, and meditation create a more coherent, health-promoting release of biophotons. I think we all want more of that. It has also been shown that these biophotons are altered by intention, which may explain one of the mechanisms of distance healing through prayer and the placebo effect. Now, another way to look at this, the failure of the intellect, is when you know what the right thing to do is, you know what the right choice is, but you still don't do it. You hear or feel the right answer, but you choose to do the opposite because the opposite is more sensory pleasing, and you are controlled by your senses because you haven't learned how to turn that around. You see how the senses are once again in control. So paying attention to your senses and the influence they have on the choices you make, how they make you go unconscious, and how they allow you to stay unconscious by continually engaging in rote habits that may not be serving you anymore. So Pandit Rajmani Tiganite says it extraordinarily well in his commentary on the Yoga Sutras, the secret of the Yoga Sutras, Samadhi Pada. As outlined by Patanjali, the father of the Yoga Sutras, there are 9 obstacles that lie in our way of yoga sadhana, the yoga practice, and impede our growth in every sphere of life. Of those 9, the inability to withdraw from sense cravings is one of them. Now, the 6th obstacle arises, the inability to withdraw our mind from sense cravings. Once we are firmly in the grip of carelessness and sloth, we employ our mind and senses indiscriminately. We fail to notice that our slow, foggy mind has fallen under the sway of the senses. We indulge without knowing why. The idea of refraining from indulgence makes no sense. We have neither the motive nor the ability to withdraw from the aimless, self-destructive activities of our senses. This unrestrained, uncontrolled, and virtually unconscious involvement of our senses with endless objects drains our vitality. We clearly see the damaging effects, yet are unable to withdraw from these sense cravings. Clinging to misunderstanding is the 7th obstacle and is a direct outgrowth of the indiscriminate, inexorable, and self-destructive cravings of our senses. The actions we perform under the spell of sense cravings create powerful mental grooves. Because they were created by actions performed in an uncontrolled, unrestrained, unconscious manner, these samskaras emit a disorienting, aimless energy. Under the influence of this disorienting energy arising from deep within, we become fully convinced that the sensory world and the experiences pertaining to it are the only reality. Not only do we no longer question the validity of the sensory world, we dismiss outright the possibility of a reality beyond it. At this stage, our senses are fully in charge of defining the truth. The world of the senses and sensory experiences is real, and everything else is unreal. It no longer occurs to us that the senses are tools for knowing the truth, and further, that they are designed to know only that portion of the truth that pertains to the objective world. Complete dependence on the senses, which are the victims of their own cravings, poses a tremendous obstacle in our spiritual quest. To move forward, we must overcome this dependency and reverse the habit of replacing truth with our own mental fabrications. Whew. Panachi said it brilliantly as usual. So my mission in this webinar is to draw a bridge between these three different authors in the Ayurvedic and the yogic world: Pandit Rajmani Tiganite, Dr. Mark Halpern, I guess there's four, Dr. Lad, and Dr. Douillard. The message is really clear. Okay, if we go back to the beginning, be mindful of your sexual energy. If you are sick or are protecting your Ojas, seriously consider reducing or abstaining from sex, especially during the summertime. 2, be mindful of how your senses are dragging you around by the nose. What is the lowest hanging fruit, as in what is the least difficult way that you can interrupt that cycle? Where is it the easiest to implement more mindfulness into your life? Waiting to check your phone until you've been awake for 30 minutes, eating without checking the phone, taking a quiet walk, whatever it looks like for you, choose something you know you can do and build momentum from there. I promise you'll be amazed at how 1 or 2 simple changes of where your energy is going will affect the rest of your energy and awareness. It is indeed a ripple effect. We become cognizant of one habit, and all of a sudden we have more time in our mornings. We slow down. The rest of our day feels different, and we choose different foods. It grows. Your body wants to be in harmony with nature. Your body is nature, but we have to help it break free of the habits that go against nature. Protecting Ojas. Go to bed by 10. Be mindful of your sexual energy and how much stimulus your senses are getting. Invest in practices that remind you of your divine origin. I've got one more quote for you. In the subtle body, pranamaya kosha, manamaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha. Don't worry if these terms aren't familiar. We'll go over them at some point in detail. In the subtle body, Ojas manifests both the forces of stability and contentment. In the mind, Ojas provides psychological stability, resisting the forces of stress and allowing a person to remain content, regardless of what is going on around them. This is from Dr. Mark Halpern. We could all use some more mental stability and resilience in any uncertain time, right? This is about the ripple effect that you have on the rest of the world. When you are in harmony with your unique nature and innate power, Imagine how that fully realized potential ripples out into the world. Thank you so much for watching this webinar. If you have any questions, please let me know. I would love to answer them and further solidify your understanding of this very important topic of Ojas and our immunity.